If you've played even a decent chunk of Valorant, you might have noticed that all the walls in this game are like paper, because you can wallbang so many different surfaces and different corners that it's actually kind of disgusting. The system is actually very confusing and inconsistent, and actually takes a ton of knowledge and experience in the game to build up the proper game sense and habits in order to properly abuse this feature. I've seen very few players make excellent use of this feature because it's a relatively subtle thing in this game. In this video, I'm not trying to make you an absolute god and wall hack everything, but I hope to give you valuable insight on exactly how the wall banging system in the game works and how you can understand it better in order to both increase your understanding and your options in the game. What's going on, gamers? It's Quash Daddy here, giving you some more tips, tricks, and guides on all things Valorant so you too can clap your enemies. In this guide, I'll be going through the overarching concepts in the wallbang system in Valorant, when your shots will and won't be a wallbang, how materials and walls of different guns affect the wall of wallbang, and the potential damage fall off as well. I want to make sure you understand walls in this game as well as possible. For more sweet videos like this one, consider liking and subbing and respond with what you want to see next. It really helps me out a ton. For the uninitiated, wallbanging in Valorant and in many other shooters is the concept of your bullets being able to penetrate straight through walls and still be able to damage enemies. This concept even applies to penetrating through bodies and dealing damage through multiple enemies at once. The main way to figure out whether or not your shot is in fact a wallbang is to shoot through some walls and test it out. There is an indicator in this game to tell you whether your shot went through the wall, dictated by a hole in the area where you shot. If there is no hole there when you shot, then that means your shot did not go through. Also, more subtly, shots that do not penetrate through a wall make a small sound that sounds like your bullet is bouncing off that wall. Guns can innately have low, medium, or high levels of wall penetration based on values given within the game, and these factors are also subject to change at the hands of Riot, based on what they believe to be the right values for them. We've already seen Riot be willing to follow through on this, as well as at the time of the recording for this video, they have already adjusted the wall penetration for one of the guns, being the Guardian, increasing its wall penetration from medium to high. This can be a great balancing feature for some guns, as things like machine guns that carry high wall penetration are able to find very interesting ways to make themselves more useful, like being able to exert a huge amount of pressure on certain parts of the map or simply mowing down opponents through a wall. Not only that, there are also a ton of other factors that go into calculating whether your shot will be able to penetrate a wall, such as what kind of wall you are shooting through, what angle you're shooting your bullet at, and how thick the wall is. Even with all of these complicated looking factors, the wall pen system is not that consistent within Valorant, producing inconsistent damage numbers even while standing still and shooting at the same spot. The kind of material that you are shooting through will also determine whether or not your shot will be able to penetrate through that wall. Generally speaking, glass and wood have a low requirement, stone and brick have a medium requirement, and metal has a high requirement in order to penetrate. It is important to recognize if your gun is able to penetrate these materials because there are factors based on the game state that allow you to determine whether it is viable to wallbang through a certain area. A classic example of this would be at the start of a round where you can wallbang certain spots to get to enemies right away. In addition, there are also agents that can provide vision of enemies that are behind a wall, such as Sova and Cypher. In these cases, it is also important to recognize if the gun you are holding will be capable enough to handle wallbanging through that spot and will be able to make best use of that. One thing to remember is that penetrating a wall with your shots does not actually affect the bullet speed of your shots, and that most of the guns in the game rely on a hit scan system anyway, so the wall pen in this case would really just affect the damage of your shots and not much else. The main way you can sort of abuse the wall pen system in the game would be shooting through the corner of a surface in order to still damage an enemy that you know is around that corner. This could also be useful if you see part of an enemy around that corner, such as their leg, and you still want to spray them down. Using deduction, you could then roughly figure out where their chest and even their head would be, and then subsequently get a wallbang. You can use this same concept and wallbanging in general to sort of get a free way of clearing an angle. Let's take a look at bind as an example. A very practical way to use wallbanging would be in pocket, where the only real cover that a player would have behind there is a wooden box. Since we now know that wood only requires low wall penetration, you can easily spray through the box with almost any gun in the game and be able to put a huge amount of pressure on those enemies and clear the angle. Some level of game knowledge is also required in order to best make use of wall penetration in the game, just due to the sheer amount of different factors and RNG that go into wall penetration itself. There are certain walls that even have different materials on both sides of it, so they can actually be deceptively more fragile than you might think. It even goes as far as knowing what angles are able to penetrate through certain parts of walls, as even the angle at which you shoot through a wall will be the difference between a shot that goes through that wall and one that doesn't. In addition to trying to get cheesy kills and damage off, wall banging in this game is an excellent resource for exerting pressure and trying to clear at angles. There's a lot of corners in this game that are only covered by light materials like wood, and deceptively so. These angles are able to be easily shut down by good use of wall penetration, but not too many players make use of this right now, as most of the time we would only shoot what we can see. However, by using our intuition and thinking about where an enemy could be on a site, we could then use wall penetration to give us reassurance that an enemy won't be in a certain area. Now that I've explained this entire system to you, you might be wondering how you can properly use this system in your own games in a practical sense. You're obviously not going to be able to make full use of the system without having insane wall hacks, but you can definitely change how you react to certain visual cues in game. If you see someone peeking out just a little bit from a corner, but most of their body is behind a wall, then you can shoot through that wall in order to try and kill them. You can also make sure you can spray through certain walls at the beginning of a round in order to force out enemies or to get random free kills, or even pressuring certain spots or enemy utilities. There's definitely more use case scenarios for this than what I've explained today, so feel free to leave a comment if there's any other great uses for wall banging that I've ever uncovered. Other than that though, feel free to make great use of the concept I put here, and I hope that you'll be able to wall bang more in your future games. Stay fresh, brothers.